they were able to bring him back a few times, but the damage was already done.
They couldn't fix his heart. This kid with the biggest heart in the world, you can't fix his heart.
Now imagine 30 people in the middle of the street. This wasn't just a fight, it was a brawl, a riot.
He has his cell phone up. It kicks on and starts recording, and it captures the ultimate moment.
There was a picture posted on social media. There was a comment made.
That comment started a firestorm.
We want to fight, we want to fight, we want to fight.
The end result is this huge desire for payback, to get revenge.
He came with the intent to seek and destroy, and that's what he did.
Just before 5 p.m. on March 18th, 2020, 911 dispatchers multiple calls about a street brawl on Madison Avenue.
You just have absolute chaos. It's people running around, you're screaming. It's just a formula for disaster.
911, I have a disturbance at Madison Avenue. Okay, is there a fight going on there? Absolutely, yes. Somebody's gonna get hurt out here.
You can hear a series of 911 calls.
I was on the phone with 911. My mom was on. Everyone was on the phone.
When police finally arrive at the scene, there's people all over the place, and a 22-year-old man laying in a pool of blood.
Paramedics reach the young man who was bleeding from an injury to his chest. Several of the young man's family members are among the crowd. They identify him as 22-year-old Maurice Skeen.
He's on the ground and he's saying, "Graham, I gotta get up. I gotta get up, Graham." He said, "I can't breathe." And I said, "No, Maurice, you can't get up. You can't get up. You have to lay down."
Maurice Mo Skeen was born on January 24, 1998. Maurice's parents weren't able to care for him, so his grandmother, Tracy, stepped up to the plate.
When he was 5, he came to live with me permanently. We were inseparable from that point on. Maurice was an easy kid. He was easy. He wanted to make you happy. And as long as you were okay, he was okay.
Maurice was talented and confident.
Maurice wanted to play basketball because his brothers played basketball. But Maurice wasn't that good at basketball. But he stuck with it and he continued with it until he became really good at basketball.
Maurice graduated high school.
He kept his grades up. He did excellent in school. So proud to see him walk across that stage. After he graduated Albany High School, he went to Mohawk University. And he was just, just excited about going to college and happy to be there.
And Albany graduating is a big deal within itself. Some people aren't fortunate enough to do that. So with him graduating and going off to college, he made everyone very proud with that.
He wanted to be an engineer because he was very good at math and measurement and all of that.
But at school, something else grabbed his interest.
He went to college. Some kind of way he got interested in rap, and he came home from school one day and he said, "Graham, I'm gonna be a rapper. If that's what you want to do, I support you." And he put everything he had into becoming a rapper.
Maurice teamed up with his friend, Jamir.
Got an opportunity to open up for Little Baby and The Baby, and with us opening up, me and Maurice, it was about 200 to 300 people within the stands, getting ready for a packed out show. And you know, that was great.
In 2020, Maurice shifted his focus to helping his grandmother realize a dream of her own.
Maurice knew that I wanted my own restaurant. That's always been my dream. So him and his brothers got together and they presented me with a storefront. And he took me down there and he opened the door and both of them was like, Graham, this is your dream.
Him and his brother put their minds together to get this rental space that was like gutted. They went in and they threw out all the old stuff. They was painting, they was doing floors, they was sheetrocking, and he was doing majority of the work. So like that was happening and then boom.
But before the business is ready to open, a street brawl leaves Maurice bleeding from a stab wound to the chest.
He was still conscious at that time, but he kept saying that it hurt, it hurts.
This young man is still laying in his pool of blood, conscious, saying that it hurts. So paramedics try to stop the blood and rush him to Albany Hospital.
When law enforcement first arrived, the scene was hectic and crowded. Within a matter of minutes, the crowd has disappeared.
So many people involved, maybe up to 50 people that are located there as potential witnesses. Unfortunately, most people took off.
Instead, investigators looked for physical evidence.
Police are doing their job, combing the area, looking for evidence, trying to find any little piece that would lead them to a suspect, but all they find is a pool of blood and a hairbrush laying in it.
The blood is photographed and the hairbrush bagged as evidence. Then, detectives spot something that might give them what they need: cameras.
The police department have direct access to cameras at red lights at most intersections. It gives them the ability to see if at that intersection where this fight took place, whether or not there's any camera angles that pick up the fight, parts of the fight, maybe the stabbing.
Investigators request footage from the city.
In order to stab someone, especially in the heart, you have to be at a certain range. You have to be in close proximity. So the question is, who was Maurice fighting?
"22-year-old Maurice Skeen is fighting for his life at Albany Medical Center after being stabbed in the chest during a street brawl. His family waits at Maurice's grandmother's house for news of his condition.
It was COVID, all of that rules and stuff. So we calling to see how he doing in the emergency room, calling. And they put me on hold. And she was like, we have to get back to you.
Hours later, homicide detectives show up at the front door.
I was like already frustrated. So like when they came in, they was like lingering a little bit. And I'm like, just speak, like, and it was like, it's like he didn't make it.
Doctors tried really hard to keep him alive, and they were able to bring him back a few times. But the wound was deep, there was a hole in his heart, a piece was gone, so the damage was already done. Maurice Skeen dies of a single stab wound to his heart.
They couldn't fix his heart. His heart. This kid with the biggest heart in the world, you can't fix his heart.
In spite of the family's grief, detectives must press them for information about the brawl. They say it started when a young woman from the neighborhood, Layla, passed away. Layla suffered from spinal muscular atrophy.
When she passed away, there was a wake. Somebody took a photo of Layla at the wake.
There was a picture posted on social media, and there was a comment made.
The comment was posted by Maurice's cousin, 18-year-old Talia Green.
One of the girls said she looked flat. My niece Talia said, flat like who? Flat Stanley?
Flat Stanley was a child's story about a boy that was as flat as a piece of paper.
And then that, everybody got the laughing emoji. And after that, my niece's phone was just ringing, chirping, dinging off the hook.
Everybody took it the wrong way. I mean, I know I should never said it, but yeah. People was texting me all over Messenger, asking me, like, oh, why you say that? Basically, like, coming aggressive to me. Oh, we want to fight, we want to fight, we want to fight.
The tension came to a head earlier that evening.
I was at home watching television, me and Talia. She's always in my bed, so we were laying in my bed watching TV. And her phone was blowing up. There was no way that this was just one person texting that fast and that many at one time. And so I looked over and I said, who is that blowing up your phone like that? And she was like, these stupid girls, Grandma. I was like, well, what's going on with the stupid girls? She said, and now everybody wants to fight me.
She was very loved by a lot of people. So when people saw this Facebook post of Talia, things became heated. Emotions being what they were at the time after the loss of someone that they loved.
There were a car full of girls that came to fight Talia that day. Talia has always been a tough kid.
So Talia went out there, there I go with the name. She went out there and she fought. I'm calling the police, they're not answering. They're not sending anybody. Cop rides by, I stop him.
The fight gets broken up. The cops basically talk to them and say, you gotta get out of here. The girls say something like they're gonna come back. Shortly after the police leave, people came back, but this time a lot more.
And that's when Maurice and my other grandson got up and went outside. My protector went out there to protect, as he always does.
He's tried to de-escalate the situation, but it got worse.
And that's when all hell broke loose.
This wasn't just a fight. It was a brawl, a riot, something straight out of a movie.
Tracy is calling 911 and trying to get the cops back, and she keeps calling, and they're telling her someone's coming.
911, what's that? Is your emergency? I'm calling about that. Y'all waiting for somebody to get killed? What's going on there? You can hear what's going on.
And they just don't get there fast enough.
A girl yells out to me, yo, you better get your boy. He leaking. And so when I looked up, I saw blood on Maurice's shirt. And so I ran to him. And I guess that's when he noticed, because he hadn't noticed that he was even stabbed at the time. And I carried him out to the sidewalk, and I laid him down.
In the chaos, Maurice Skeen had been stabbed.
I just didn't expect a lot of this. All of this, I didn't expect to be sitting here talking about him in the past tense.
His service, there was a good amount of people at his service. Unfortunately, it was during COVID, So there was a lot of restrictions on what could and couldn't be done. We was allowed to have a viewing for him, and we was allowed to bring him to the graveyard. We weren't allowed to do an actual service, but for the viewing and for bringing him to the graveyard, there was a great number of people. Once again, he was charismatic, you know, so he was a hard guy not to like.
Investigators in Albany, New York, learned that the deadly street brawl that led to the stabbing death of Maurice Skeen was the result of a clash on social media.
There was a comment said, and there was back and forth going on. It transpired into them fighting. Ended in Maurice getting stabbed.
The brawl took place outside of Maurice's grandmother's home. While several of his relatives witnessed the chaos, no one witnessed the actual stabbing.
The fight was total chaos. I couldn't remember none of it because I was so emotional up there. I didn't even know who had done it. And I was right there, I didn't know. Nobody knew who killed him. Nobody saw him.
Maurice's godmother, Shantae, recalls seeing one man make verbal threats toward Maurice.
The gentleman kept saying, yo, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. And he had his hand in his pocket. That hand never left his pocket.
The boy had
recording in progress.
His eye. And he kept telling Mo he was gonna kill him. Kill him. Kill him, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you. He said it so much that Shantae said that the hairs literally stood up on her real head. You understand? Under her wig. You know, she said she believed him.
Was the man gripping a knife inside his pocket? Shantae is unable to ID him. Talia gives investigators the names of several individuals who were present at the fight.
I know of most of them. Like, I haven't went to school with most of them, passed them in the hallway or whatever.
Hopeful that someone else saw something, investigators start knocking on doors.
All of the witnesses that were there, the neighbors and everything, not one person saw this person with a knife in their hand that actually stabbed the victim.
But that doesn't mean they can't help.
A lot of the neighbors came outside and people started recording with their phones.
You had people filming from their windows from the buildings.
As technicians work to collect the footage, investigators hone in on the list of names from Talia.
The detectives put together what are called photo arrays. They showed these photo arrays to the family members so that they could try to begin to identify who had come to the house and engaged in this fight with Maurice.
Shantae is certain she spots the man who threatened Maurice.
I didn't see the stabbing, but I know who said he wanted to kill him.
Shantae Coleman identified this person, Darius Coakley, in a photo array saying, this is the person.
Investigators are eager to speak with 21-year-old Darius. But when they go to his home, they learn from witnesses that Darius is gone.
He packed up his things quickly, called his mother, and left the area. He deactivated his social media.
It appears that Darius is laying low. As investigators continue to look for him, they learn the footage from the city's surveillance cameras is ready.
Unfortunately, we, pretty quickly learned that although it caught portions of the fight, where the stabbing happens is right out of view.
Investigators still have the cell phone footage collected from witnesses, which has continued to trickle in as news of Maurice's death spreads through his neighborhood.
Given that they were cell phone videos, they were moving a lot. They were not steady, and they were from a variety of angles. It wasn't clear where the knife was or who was doing the stabbing.
The most difficult part in this case was sorting out who was responsible for stabbing Maurice, because he was fighting with multiple different people and it was only a single stab wound. It was a very quick blow that struck him one time.
We decided to send those videos to the New York State Police Lab so that they could arrange them and use technology to try to make it less complicated or confusing. And that took a lot of time. They have, a massive caseload.
While they wait, investigators ask Maurice's family to take a look at the videos, paying close attention to who was near Maurice.
In watching the videos, we could see that where we believe Maurice had been stabbed, there was at least 3 people that could have been the suspect.
One of those men is Darius Coakley. Maurice's family helps identify the other 2.
The 2 individuals that were closest to Maurice at the time of the stabbing, apart from Darius Coakley, was a Ramir Stevenson and a Najalik Giggets. Before Maurice is stabbed, the person that he is physically fighting with and punching is Ramir Stevenson.
If you watch the videos and my cousin come out the gate, he's the first person he come in contact with fighting.
Darius Coakley can see that the victim is fighting with Ramir, and he positions himself right behind a vehicle that they're going to pass through. And at that area where basically 2 cars are parked at a curb is the victim, Maurice Skeen, Darius Coakley, Ramir Stevenson, and Najali Giggets, all in a very confined space. And we know that Maurice is stabbed there.
Did Ramir stab Maurice as they fought? Or did Darius or Najalik take advantage of the chaotic moment to plunge a knife into Maurice's heart?
There were 3 main potential suspects. We knew that we had to eliminate 2 individuals that did not do it.
Following the stabbing death of Maurice Skeen, investigators in Albany used cell phone video collected from witnesses to narrow the list of suspects down to 3: Darius Coakley, Ramir Stevenson, and Najali Giggets. They find Ramir the next day.
When the police find Ramir Stevenson, he is stopped by law enforcement in, I believe it was North Carolina, a southern state. He is arrested because he has a large quantity of marijuana in the car. And when the police find out that he'd been stopped in North Carolina, they either drove or flew to interview him. He was willing to speak with the police, and he told them, if I remember correctly, that he didn't know who had stabbed the victim, that he wasn't the one that did it, but he was willing to speak to a degree openly about what happened, which was not ultimately very indicative of him being the suspect.
As for the remaining 2 suspects, Darius Coakley remains in the wind. And it looks like Najali Giggets may be as well.
We obtained information that he fled immediately after, and that's also a huge indicator of someone's guilt that we look at as detectives, is what are someone's actions after they commit a crime.
Najali Giggets had some warrants on some other charges, and it appeared that he was hiding out.
Months after the murder, investigators get an unexpected surprise when Darius reaches out to them. They learn that Darius has spent the last couple of months at his father's house in Brooklyn.
Darius hired an attorney. That attorney called the police department and said, don't speak to my client. And if there are going to be charges, you are going to, charge my client with any sort of a crime, contact me.
For the next several months, the investigation stalls out. Maurice's family grapples with grief and unanswered questions.
With situations like this, right, everyone wants answers quick, right? We forget that there's a process that goes on with everything. So there was times when everyone is frustrated.
We felt that this was a heat of the moment homicide. This was personal in the moment, and we felt that the risk was worth taking our time.
Over a year after Maurice was killed, investigators finally locate Najalik Giggets. Najalik denies stabbing Maurice, and it appears he avoided questioning because of his outstanding warrants. With all three suspects denying involvement, investigators have no choice but to turn back to the evidence. They learned that the state lab has finished compiling the cell phone videos.
We had sent the videos to the lab, and we got back what are called compilation videos. Simple enough, right? They laid them out the best that they could. But even them, they were tough to discern.
There is a moment in one of the videos that catches their attention.
On that video, after Darius Coakley is getting thrown around by Maurice Skeen, you see someone run over and bend down to grab something.
It's funny how timing is, but a truck passes by on video and blocks what she is reaching over and bending over to pick up. But it captures just enough to show that she bends down and picks something up in the middle of the street.
Police can only assume that this can potentially be the murder weapon.
They keep watching. Investigators come upon another clip that appears to zero in on the exact seconds they have been looking for.
As fate may have it, there was a gentleman. He was sitting at a red light, and he witnesses this brawl start. And lucky for us, he put up his cell phone and hit record.
When we took that video, zoomed in on it, and went frame by frame, you're actually able to see when the knife is displayed by Darius.
And it captures the ultimate moment. Darius pulls out a knife and stabs the victim in the heart. Darius stabbed Maurice. It's the type of thing that once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Investigators know they will need more than a grainy video to convict Darius. Law enforcement identified the young woman in the video as Alexis Brown. Albany police bring her in for questioning.
They show her the video footage. She felt cornered and she decided to cooperate.
She was actually quite forthcoming with information, and I think that she truly wanted to help us.
Alexis goes on to share that she was the driver to a group of people who were part of the fight, and that there was someone in her car with a knife.
That person was Darius Coakley. Alexis describes the brawl as pure chaos. And then, all of a sudden, she realized it had turned deadly.
You just see arms, arms, arms. You don't know what struck him, who struck him. He's holding his chest, and then he's just gasping. He just go down to one knee. He's just sitting there.
Alexis says she saw Darius fleeing toward her car. He called back to her.
She hears a male voice as she says it on the stand. She hears a male voice come from her car and say, you know, pick that up or pick up the knife. And she looks down in the middle of the street and sees it. She picks up the knife.
During that interview, she stated that she put it in the cup holder of her vehicle and then didn't see what happened to the knife after that.
While Alexis didn't see the stabbing, her statement allows investigators to connect the dots.
There was only one person who was injured to the point where they were bleeding. That knife had to have been the weapon that stabbed and killed Maurice.
Social media is what started all of this. Social media. Social media is a place where people can say whatever they want and do whatever they want and post whatever they want. People can throw threats, you know, and show violence all day on it. Words shouldn't make you want to drive to kill anybody.
Police in Albany have zeroed in on Darius Coakley as the prime suspect in the stabbing death of Maurice Skeen. They learned that 21-year-old Darius is a lifelong resident of Albany.
Darius had a mother who was a single mom, working 2 jobs. He was never in any sort of legal trouble. Darius had no criminal record.
They also learned that Darius met Layla in high school. He formed an intense bond with the young woman in the wheelchair.
Darius and her were incredibly close. He obviously cared, loved this person.
Investigators believe that Darius was grief-stricken over Layla's death. So much so that he joined a group headed to seek revenge in her name at Maurice's grandmother's house. But investigators believe that Darius headed into the fight armed with more than his fists.
That's the thing, Darius included a weapon. And, you know, he's the only one. He's the only one out of all the people that were fighting, 30+ people. Everybody just used their hands, but he felt the need that to pull out a knife.
Over a year after the murder, Darius is finally arrested on August 6th, 2021.
We felt 100% confident presenting it to a grand jury. Once the grand jury indicted him for murder in the 2nd degree and we had a warrant in hand from the grand jury, we contacted his attorney, who then had him turn himself in to the police department.
When Darius came into the police station, he had just shark eyes looking at us like there was no soul left in his eyes. And I told him that he was under arrest for murder.
Prosecutors prepare for trial. As they do, they realize a potentially catastrophic mistake.
The crime scene and the placement of some of the blood evidence was really crucial in this case. And in the crime scene photos, you could see that where he went to the ground, there was a big spot of blood. The police never swabbed that pool of blood.
A weak point defense attorneys will certainly seize.
That pool of blood was important because he must have been stabbed before he lands on the ground with the pool of blood. And the people he was with right before that must have been the stabber.
In a case like this, all you need is reasonable doubt in order to have the suspect walk.
The defense at trial, they could easily say that, they can't prove that he was stabbed at that point. That could have been someone else's blood. They can't prove to you whose blood that was.
Prosecutors team up with investigators. They pore over the evidence, zeroing in on what could be their saving grace.
A hairbrush gets dropped during the scrum in the street and it lands in blood. That hairbrush was collected. That hairbrush was in the pool of blood. We rushed that hairbrush to the lab that did DNA testing and it was Maurice's blood, just like we knew it was.
So by process of elimination, we can say Maurice Skeen was stabbed here. Who was around him at that time? And we're just systematically going through and dissecting the video evidence and the witness statements we have. And once we determined who was in proximity of Maurice at the time of the stab, we knew it was Darius Coakley, Najali Giggets, and Ramir Stevenson. At the time of the stab, Ramir Stevenson has his hands out, nothing in them. Najalik Giggets, you can see him fighting, nothing in his hands. The only person with something in their hand was Darius Coakley, and it was in his left hand.
As Darius's trial date looms near, prosecutors are confident. But so is Darius. Instead of alleging he didn't intend to kill Maurice, Darius pleads not guilty.
Darius Coakley opted to go all or nothing. Here's someone who had no prior criminal record. He hasn't been to state prison. Darius does not want to take that chance. He goes all in.
In November 2022, 2.5 years after Maurice Skeen is stabbed during a street brawl, his accused murderer, Darius Coakley, goes on trial. Darius's defense team makes the most of the chaos that surrounded Maurice's murder.
A common defense tactic can be confusion. In a street fight, there was so much going on that the argument really was, you can't tell what's happening.
The defense team took a stand of trying to pin the murder on the other two suspects, Ramir Stevenson and Najalik Giggets.
Their focus really was simply that it was not him, and focusing on Ramir and Najalik. They didn't call any witnesses. The defendant didn't testify.
Prosecutors counter. They call Maurice's family members, who give heart-wrenching accounts of the night he died.
Maurice's grandmother testified about Maurice being the protector, the elder boy of the family, and he's trying to protect the family. Telling everybody they need to leave, stop disrespecting my grandmother's house. Darius, the defendant in this case, got into his face.
And during that part of it, Maurice sort of takes his hand and mushes it into Darius and sort of shoves him away.
Shantae, Maurice's godmother, testifies that Darius became enraged.
Darius just gets incredibly mad. He's seething. He is saying that he's gonna kill him. He is saying verbally he's gonna kill him.
Prosecutors show what happened next when they present the jury with video from the brawl.
I was able to really present to them some still shots that were zoomed in, slowed down with, things that were circled, and show it to them over and over again.
It really came together with the state police and the phenomenal video work they did, where now we had a knife in Coakley's hand. We had a knife in Coakley's left hand, and he's using that left hand with that knife to stab Maurice Skeen in the chest.
You could see clearly that it was not Najalik and Ramir. It was Darius Coakley.
As they close, prosecutors are clear that Darius's actions in those seconds were no accident.
He did have the intent to cause the death because where he stabbed him. He stabbed him right in the middle of his chest, which is where we all know what's in the middle of our chest, which is the heart, and that's exactly where he got him. So even though he only stabbed him once, we believe that he had the intent to cause the death of Maurice.
Maurice was defending his family, like I believe any man would do. Darius came to seek and destroy. He came with a knife. He came with the intent to seek and destroy, and that's what he did.
Finally, after closing arguments, the jury announces they have reached a verdict.
Darius Coakley was found guilty of second-degree murder in the case of Maurice Skeen.
The judge imposed 25 years to life in state prison. You have a crass comment which prompted this huge desire for payback, to pay back get revenge. We're going to get revenge for what you said to this young woman who just died 3 weeks ago. And then you have Darius Coakley, you know, plunging a knife into the heart of Maurice. The result now is Maurice's life has been taken, and Darius Coakley's life is now in the, you know, he's in state custody.
We got justice for Maurice, but at the same time, someone else's life is being destroyed.
But it's a lose-lose. Another black man behind bars for 25 years.
Darius doesn't understand the light that he took out of my family's eyes. Maurice died not because he feared what was in front of him, but because he was defending what was behind him.
To honor Maurice, his family opened the store. A dream Maurice shared with his grandmother.
Maurice worked all day and all night in the winter to get it open, and he missed the opening. He wasn't there.
After that happened, his brother had to take on to finishing everything up, and he got the store up and running. And now it grew into another. He has a juice bar across the street. So, you know, but Mo would be a part of all this if he was there. He was a big part of it.
I miss him. I just wish he was here.